day two of the Centre Court MBA Festival with my co-host John Byrne at Poets and Quants. We've already been talking a lot about the possible impact of AI, the speed of advancement in technology, healthcare, and how business school is this wonderful incubator. It's a safe space to explore so many exciting new career opportunities. We've talked about agility and adaptability, vulnerability, and how business schools provide this enduring value of the MBA through an ocean of change. So having had our admission session, and if any of our viewers missed that session, of course, it'll be available on all of the Poets and Quants channels. But now we're turning to the program directors, the architects that work their magic to bring together this compelling curriculum, the electives, the hard skills, the soft skills. So how do they do it? Well, to find out more, it's a pleasure to welcome Wendy Guild. Wendy is the Assistant Dean of the MBA programs at Berkeley Haas, joined by Anne Bryan. Anne is the Director of the full-time MBA program at Kenan-Flagler at UNC. Coming in from Florida and the land of Gators, John Gressley. He's the Associate Dean and Executive Director of University of Florida's Warrington College. And from Tulane, down in New Orleans, Mark Ratchford, a friend of Centre Court. It's lovely to have him back. He's the MBA Faculty Director. So let's begin perhaps just with your schools, your institutions, their personalities. I've described them as this wonderful incubator to explore. Wendy, as you've discovered Berkeley Haas, how do you now like to describe or share it with others?
Sure. Well, thank you, Matt. First, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about Haas. It's an amazing place. I'm relatively new to Haas. I've been here for 9 months, but I've been in the business of business schools for many years as a faculty and administrator. And I'm just so pleased to be here. It's such an amazing place. We talk about Berkeley Haas as being in the heart of what's next. And to the point of what you were just talking about with AI, we're really in the heart of where so much of this was created and is being currently innovated with respect to and changing the economy in some really fundamental ways. So it's a very, very exciting place to be. Across the board, they're just people who are very committed, excited with big ideas. We have top researchers. We have world-class founders of organizations that are a part of our alumni, incredibly talented students and very dedicated and bright staff that are really going after it to provide a top-level experience for our students. Three features I really just want to highlight about our school are defining leadership principles. We really focus on and really live the principles of challenging the status quo, as you might expect from Berkeley, where we have confidence without attitude. We're students always seeking to learn and have an endless curiosity, and we strive to go beyond ourselves and think bigger about the impact of our work as we're trying to ensure that we have impact in our work. So we've got a group that's very committed. We share a culture, and we've got a really strong community of folks that are committed. I mentioned that our location is really a huge differentiator for us in the world's fifth largest economy. So close to Silicon Valley, with all this capital floating around, looking for ideas to attach itself to. So it's a great place to come if you're interested in entrepreneurship or just want to see where cutting edge ideas are going. We have tremendous strength in entrepreneurship and innovation, sustainability, and in DEI, JB, we call it, and justice and belonging added to DEI. These have been sort of important pillars of what we do here at Berkeley. And so as a leader, you'll have strong competencies in these areas because they're infused throughout the curriculum. And the last piece is, we're a part of this amazing Berkeley campus. My background here is from a building here on campus. And our motto is Fiat Lux, let there be light. And we're super proud of our #1 status as a public research university, bringing to life incredible innovations. I can speak more about some of the features of Berkeley later, but we're obviously well known for cutting edge research and all of our Nobel laureates. So it's an amazing place to take advantage of innovations, things that are happening, things that are new, catalyze them, put them into the market and make it go. So exciting place to be a student for sure.
A great place. You've absorbed a lot in the last 9 months and clearly going beyond yourself too. Mark, Tulane and the Freeman School, steeped in culture in New Orleans, but at the same time, bringing all of the latest business ideas into the classroom. So, Tulane and Freeman, how do you like to describe the school?
Yeah, first off, I really appreciate you inviting us into this chat. And, I just picked up Wendy mentioned location, right, as a strength of, Berkeley, right? And I actually think of New Orleans as, being a real draw, but I think in a very different way than than Berkeley. I mean, New Orleans, I'll assume, the other panelists have been here. If you can't have fun in this city, you're not looking for fun. And so I'd like to think our program, obviously I'm going to speak about, the specifics of the program, but, as sort of a place to live for 2 years, I feel like for, 20 and 30 some things of which I am not, it's a pretty good, pretty fun location. So Freeman, we're intentionally designed to be a relatively small, relatively high touch program. We have a really diverse group of students in terms of backgrounds and interests. So we're sort of designed to be small, but we do want a very global program. And so this is something we've really ratcheted up, as of really the last 2 years, where we're drawing a much more international student body. I think because we are so small, it allows our students to get a lot of individualized attention. I think, definitely from faculty. They get to know their classmates really well, but also from career services, because we, maintain, I think right now we have maybe 25 students in each class. I think each student really gets to know, career services well. And so, is it a strength? Is it a weakness? I really think the size of the program is a strength. In terms of curriculum, we are an absolutely different place as of this year. We completely overhauled, redesigned the curriculum kind of from top to bottom. And we have really focused on two or three different things, but one of the main things is data literacy. And so what we did was we added an analytics course sequence to the first year curriculum, and it cuts across disciplines. And it's really designed to help our students efficiently analyze and interpret data. I think there's 5 different courses in the sequence, and they all, kind of build upon one another. The other thing that we've added to the curriculum is a really heavy experiential learning component. And so we actually have as of right now, we have 2 required experiential learning courses where our students work on real world projects with companies. And so our notion is it's sort of learning by doing. And this isn't a new thing, right, to business schools, but I think we've really kind of formalized it in our curriculum. And so in some sense, we're requiring experiential learning in the curriculum, which I think is a bit unique. And I think one of the things that facilitates that is just our small size, where we actually, can do that. So anyways.
Well, you've given us a taste of some of the new focus in the classroom. We'll talk about all of the fun outside of the classroom a little later on. Obviously, have to come to you for that. Anne, your colleague Nicole mentioned earlier, the rumor of Kenan-Flagler is that you're the nice MBA. And I think that that's a rumor that should spread and spread. It's a great way to describe it, but take us deeper. What makes it such a warm, welcoming place?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And as my colleagues have shared, thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this today. I've heard through Wendy and Mark similarities that weave through our program, but something I hear a lot from our students and our alums is that UNC Kenan-Flagler is a kind community. Of course, we balance rigor and competition with experiential opportunities. And we very much emphasize the extras outside of the classroom, the friendships, the club activities, extracurriculars, and the leadership development opportunities that we encourage our students and curate for them to engage in, because we think it enriches the overall MBA experience for all of our students. It's an environment, UNC Kenan-Flagler is an environment where students really fully support each other across the 2 years of the experience inside and outside the classroom. And we really think this sort of kind of well-rounded approach prepares students for success, not just in their careers, which we think is very important, but also in their personal lives and in their personal growth journey. The commitment to what we call the Carolina Way reflects our culture of collaboration, diversity, pushing each other to succeed. And we think that together this creates professionals that are good collaborators, good innovators, and are able to work with anybody. And we hear that over and over from our employers. We also engage in the experiential education journey, as everybody has mentioned, giving students the chance to get that hands-on experience that are woven throughout our students' time in the program, giving them the chance to practice leadership skills, apply cutting-edge classroom knowledge, whether it's through consulting in our STAR program or real estate, both on the development and the investment project side, or just investing with the millions of dollars that our students can sort of play with through our capital markets lab. We think that that helps to create that kind community and helps us to have a little bit of differentiation among our peers.
Well, the sense of community, and John, in the previous panel with our focus on admissions, your colleague Nav said, as an individual, you put together the application, you arrive as a Warrington student, but you graduate as a Warrington family. Now, how does that fit in with how you like to describe the school?
Absolutely. Warrington is pretty easily described as one of the most innovative schools here at the University of Florida. From our home base in Gainesville, we're a leading research institution in the Southeast. We're one of the top public institutions in the country, and that really gives the MBA program a position of strength to attract a really broad array of talent. And if you think about Florida as a state right now, we've got all kinds of industry, we've got all kinds of population growth, and that's a huge opportunity when it comes to attracting talent. And one of the things that we think about when we attract talent, and this probably goes for everybody, is there's a thing about fit too, right? We could absolutely go out there and just collect really smart people and bring them into our programs, but how does it work together in the outcomes? And if we look at that, we're talking about Warrington, which is really making it small from a big perspective. And so we've got these individual cohorts, we've got small by design, not unlike some of the stuff that my friends have said here. And I want to reiterate that as the fourth person here, there's a lot of stuff you've already heard, and that just proves you've got 4 really good programs here. You've got a lot of commonality, a lot of common themes, and that means we're doing something similar, and that means we're not out there doing crazy stuff, which means you can rely on the experience. We're taking a big population of students at the graduate management level. We're breaking them down into small cohorts. We're creating those individual relationships. And by the time you graduate from Warrington, from that family outcome, you really are at a place where you found something that feels like home. You found somebody that you can relate to. You've gotten that business education that matters. The Gator is sort of unique in the world of mascots, and we've got a couple of very unique mascots here from that sense as well. I mean, if there was a tiger, it'd be a little bit easier to make that joke because there's like 95 tigers out there. There really aren't that many Gators, but when you become a Gator, it means something. And when you join Warrington, you become a business Gator, and that really is something that goes with you into your professional space. It is a family. It is a group that's willing to support each other. We call a group of Gators a congregation, and I think that that's a really great word to describe how we come together and how we create that family atmosphere here at Warrington.
Well, you talk about a crazy world that is out there. It's fast moving, it's disruptive. And Wendy, as you were talking about, a student always to then be open to learning. So as you think about, changes in technology and innovation and GPT and others, what implications does that have for the way that you're looking to train the next generation of business school leaders?
Yeah, I'm on. You're handing it
You
to
are.
me. All right,
You are.
let's do it. All right. So, with respect to innovation, I mean, we're obviously well positioned and have a long track record of capitalizing on innovation, seeding and capitalizing on innovation here at Berkeley. I think one thing that's exciting is that a lot of AI, the foundations of the technology was crafted here at Berkeley. And obviously, OpenAI and a lot of the heart of what's happening with the movement is centered here in San Francisco, with a great deal of hiring and a lot of energy around, what are the business opportunities therein. And so there's all sorts of exciting things happening on campus. Some of them are led by students and bringing in all these great alumni panels that are helping us understand what's happening. Employers are coming in and talking about what they're needing that's changing, which is really exciting. So our career management group has been very close in touch with a lot of these new companies that are popping up, and also sort of existing companies, and understanding how their practice is changing. So it's very much a part of not just the learning experience. We're integrating it into a number of our classes. Our data analytics course is changing every year. The faculty are excited about that. But we're keeping up with what's going on, and the students are really pushing us to make sure that relevance is there, as they should. And so we're bringing in speakers, and changing our curriculum on the fly, if you will, as the world changes. Again, so the university itself has this very strong record of seeding opportunities for entrepreneurship. And I think that can't be underscored enough, because even if you would like to work in consulting or finance, having exposure to what's happening at the cutting edge of the economy is super, super helpful. So we're opening our entrepreneurship hub starting next fall, that brings together entrepreneurship and centers that here at Haas from across the campus. We have Berkeley Skydeck, which greenlights a lot of early seed funding for ideas across the campus. Again, sort of #1 public university, of course, according to PitchBook for entrepreneurship. We have more seeding happening here than you can get your hands around, more opportunities. So, it's definitely a really exciting place to be because of all of the innovation that's happening. Lots of centers, ways to play with money to get things going.
And presumably, Mark, an exciting opportunity to sort of overhaul and think about, okay, now in 2024, you talked about data literacy, and to bring in components to the program that really reflect, where we are today and the sort of skills business students require. So what was the thinking, and how you've then emphasized certain areas?
I think our program is really sort of coming up to date, right, with kind of the modern programs. I think, the obviously my colleagues on this chat are, at top universities, and we really had to get into the curriculum and sort of see where we were deficient. Believe it or not, New Orleans actually is a bit of an innovation hub, but it's, at least in my opinion, a little bit more around healthcare innovation. And so we, now at Freeman, we have a pretty big entrepreneurship center. If I can say this, it's pretty well funded. We also, we have a downtown campus where we have our hospital, and that's becoming a bit of an innovation hub. But I think clearly, right, the rapid pace of kind of new technological introductions, right, it's pushing businesses to adapt, right, to innovate in order to remain competitive. I don't think I'm unique in saying this, but I think the companies that really kind of best leverage technology, right, they're going to be the ones that succeed into the future. And so the buzz, right, the thing that's all over the business press these days is going to be big data analytics. And so of course, and I know all of our programs on this call, we've sort of embraced this notion, right, that managers are going to need to perhaps not be experts in, but at least understand big data analytics. So like in my field, I'm marketing. I teach the core marketing course at all of our MBA levels here. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, they're helping marketers kind of sift through mountains of structured and unstructured data to help kind of get a better understanding of things like customer behavior, customer preferences, industry trends, right, pricing decisions, you name it. And then when I look at kind of the landscape of marketing jobs, again, this is kind of the world that I know best, right? We've actually seen a drop in things like content creation jobs, right? Where, maybe 10 years ago, companies were hiring our grads. They're saying, hey, you be a social media content creator. Those jobs are actually being replaced by AI. And so, the notion is that future managers, right, they don't have to be experts in coding, per se, but they do need to be skilled in data literacy, right? They need to understand, AI and kind of machine learning capabilities and limitations. They really need to be able to manage AI-driven projects. And then I'd say, kind of most importantly, right, they're going to need to be skilled in gaining insights from big data. And so, if I kind of look at what we did with the curriculum, we just tried to capture, some of this changing landscape. Again, I'm sure, my colleagues would say, well, we've done this as well. But we really have kind of redesigned the curriculum around just that.
Right. Now we talk about innovation and of course at Chapel Hill you're in this triangle of innovation. You're very dynamic. And what might start there or on the West Coast or down on the South Coast can then ripple around the world. How do you also then prepare students for the global nature of business and supply chains and how everything is all these moving parts that you're bringing together?
I think that's a great question. And I think one of the things that we're all doing right is prioritizing admitting a really diverse class, encompassing people from different cultures, different personal backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, to ensure that all of our graduates are gaining perspectives from people they may not have otherwise been exposed to, either at the undergraduate level or in previous graduate education. And I think that kind of exposure broadens and reshapes their thinking during the program and beyond, and prepares them to work across globally diverse teams, to work with and thrive in multinational organizations, to help companies think differently about, for example, hiring international students. Let's say my company's never hired somebody, never gone through the H-1B process. Now here I was, an international student getting my MBA at UNC Chapel Hill, got hired by my first company, and now I'm a hiring manager. And so helping that company to live into their maybe their core values or their multinational focus. I think another way that campuses are preparing students for a more global business landscape is by ensuring that we're all teaching culturally relevant content. Whether that means updating courses like Mark has been describing at his campus, or whether that means program redesign, updating course content year to year, using new cases or newer cases that aren't seminal for the industry when we can, or bringing in guest speakers. If I don't have a particular talent in this area, but my students are saying, hey, we need some of this, making sure that I am reaching out to business leaders who can talk about their personal experience, either in leading diverse teams or working across cultures or something like that. And then I think lastly, we all could probably describe a rich set of global opportunities that we either encourage or require our students to participate in, from global immersions to exchanges and so forth. For us at UNC Kenan-Flagler, when it comes to that type of programming, we very intentionally select non-traditional markets to send our students to, because we think they've already been to so many other more traditional markets, including we are looking at emerging markets, microeconomies, things like that, because we think our students both gain valuable experience from those types of immersions, as well as skills that will help them with that changing global nature of business as they graduate and prepare to be leaders on their own.
Now, it's perhaps a little early for happy hour in Gainesville, but maybe John will tell me it's always happy hour in Gainesville. So we're still going to embrace the ethics question. And picking up on something that Anne said of student voices and how they're also leading, the sort of the demand for these certain areas. So as we think about socially responsible business, which has been around for decades, but it feels that it's sort of in the mainstream now. How have you then reflected at Warrington, responsible business?
Absolutely. And there's a big part of understanding what's happening now to making responsible business choices. I think one of the best educators, and I'm not just saying this because of the headlines that we've had for the last 18 months or so, but one of the best educators in this space is the headlines, right? It's kind of what's happening right there now, because ethical decisions are something that are rooted in truth, but absolutely have to evolve to be relevant to the times in which they're interpreted. And so while most of us who've had business education, maybe a couple of years or a couple of decades ago, can all talk about Enron, that name doesn't mean anything to students nowadays for the most part, because that happened perhaps before they were born. But yet we'd hold up Enron as a very good ethical case study for very obvious reasons. Now, we've gotten a couple of really good headlines lately to support that, but that does helps me remember when we're talking about ethics that part of it is you got to have a context within the time that it's happening. So how do we borrow from the headlines to say, what would you have done different? What could you have done different? Can you understand why that person or that corporation did what they did? And that's important because if you understand the why, it certainly helps you get a better handle on the ethics of it. And we're in a very dynamic time from that standpoint. And if you look at things like green energy right now, right, that's a moving target. And a lot of people focus on that. And that's a reasonable thing to do. But we can all acknowledge that what it was 4 years ago in terms of what we thought about it and how we were working on it was completely changed when the presidential administration changed and the investments that they put in it. And that's going to change again at some point, maybe in 8 months, maybe in 4 years, who knows? But those things are constantly changing. So to really teach that ethical foundation, you've got to understand the why people do what they do, and then to help students understand how would you react in that situation? What would you do? Give them the real life opportunities to say, would I have done it differently? And how would I have done it differently if the circumstances changed? Because teaching a fixed point in responsibility and ethics becomes very dangerous very quickly because the world in which those decisions are made is going to be completely different the second they walk out of our classroom doors.
Right. Now, thinking about that ever-changing news cycle and the world around, bringing it into the individual lives of 285 Haas students, Wendy, as they navigate that sort of arena, you're then helping them with their soft skills. You talked earlier about confidence without attitude. So, to be successful in that sort of environment, what are the skills we're talking about? Communication, emotional intelligence? What emerges from that?
Well, Matt, this is my sweet spot, as my background is teaching and management and organization behavior. So I can actually go on quite some time. I will try to edit myself on this topic. Our students have the great benefit of some tremendous faculty who teach our core class in leading people and ethics. We also have a class called leadership communication, which helps them understand how to tell their story and in a compelling way. So the communication skills are really emphasized here as well. But one of our new initiatives, we have a task force on leadership development that's really trying to pull the thread all the way through the program from even before the time the students show up, where they put together a self-assessment against an intellectual framework that we have about what it means to be a Berkeley leader. And then we thread through both the curriculum and co-curricular experiences, how they can actually put together a plan for themselves so that they can activate their own leadership development by choosing their path through our program experience. We create moments of reflection and touch points, and we have leadership development partners that they'll be paired with in order to have sort of someone to help them think through how they're developing and sort of keep them committed to it and keep them accountable to their plan. But what we're hoping to do there is really flesh out what it means to be a Berkeley leader, to make sure our students leave the program with the competencies and skills that they need in order to go into the world and really make an impact. And I think one thing that we're really excited about is bringing our defining leadership principles to life through this vehicle of this sort of this rethought roadmap and leadership development plan experience that our students will be going through. In particular, we do such a great job drawing students who are very passionate about, in the last question, sort of socially responsible business. And they have great ideas and they ask amazing questions, but they may not quite have the skills to figure out how to be that Berkeley change maker we're hoping that they'll be. And so we're hoping that they'll pick up those skills along the way, so that by the time they leave here at Berkeley, the culture is fully instilled about what it means to be a Berkeley leader, and they've got the skills to deliver on it. So we're really very excited about this new initiative. We think that it really complements our strength in being a very rigorous school that's focused very heavily on analytics and having the tools to meet the challenge of this new, very fast-pacing economy, but doing so through our values of inclusion and all of our defining leadership principles. So we're excited about this new initiative.
And staying with Wendy's sweet spot, Mark, we talk about emotional intelligence, just the simple idea of confidence. When, your graduates will go on to exciting new career opportunities, increases in their salary. But when you look at them on day one, maybe in one of your marketing classes at the beginning of the program, and then observe them 2 years later, do you see this sort of leadership path that just that they're confident individuals ready to go out and embrace the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've, kind of speaking a bit off the cuff here, but we've tended to have a fair number of kind of younger students, right? Folks who come in with, some work experience, but limited work experience. From what I've seen, they're really smart individuals, but perhaps, slightly, underconfident. And so I think, the program, I think for the, in particular, the ones who apply themselves, you see a different student right at the end of that second year. You really do. It's almost like a completely different person, kind of from day one to the end. I hate to date myself, but I was an MBA student over 20 years ago, and I'm not going to insert my age into this, but I think the learning about yourself, right, is one of the most important aspects of an MBA program. I think a lot of there's a bit of intimidation, I think, on day one, right, when these students kind of set foot in their first class, and I think they quickly realize, hey, I can do it, hey, I can be here, and that kind of springboards them onto bigger and better things. And I think soft skills are really important. I think all programs for many years, again, I'll go back to my day, right? I think that, kind of the hard skills were always taught: finance, accounting, marketing, et cetera. But I think, communication, teamwork, leadership skills, right? Adaptability, problem solving skills. These are the things that the students, really take away from the program, right? Above and beyond, I would like to hope, at least in my case, they learn a little bit something, about marketing. I hope my college teach them, some finance, some accounting, et cetera. But really the soft skills, the confidence, right? The kind of that the motivation, that self-drive, I think that's a lot of what they're going to gain, from the program.
And when you send them out and to some of these off the beaten path destinations, microeconomies, but even the summer internship between year one and year two. Now you're building up to that moment, but that must be pivotal. Not just for perhaps they come back and say, great, I'm going to get an offer at the end of the MBA, but in certain cases they come back and they say, well, I discovered it wasn't the industry for me, and that was part of the value of the summer internship. So what role does the internship play as it weaves between year one and year two?
Is it still my question?
No, I was turning to Anne for that
Oh.
one as she sends the students off to these off the beaten path destinations.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the vast majority of our students, and I will say we have a pretty robust dual degree program. We've got students who are doing JDs and MDs and MPHs and DDSs. But for the vast majority of our students, that internship, that opportunity to develop those soft skills that we just talked about at a company, that ability to take the coursework that they've had and apply it to real life experience, that ability to talk to company leaders in structured settings and in informal settings is absolutely critical. Not only, I think, to say, is this the right industry for me? And I'll pick on investment bankers for just a second if I can, right? I recruited heavily for investment banking. I was really successful, ended up with an opportunity. And then I got there and I realized either I don't love living in New York, or my wife hasn't seen me, or my spouse hasn't seen me in 6 weeks because I've been doing this job 100 hours a week. I think it's critical for their personal growth too, not just, we want you to go out there and experience this and apply the skills and meet this degree requirement, but to give you some exposure and to think about life beyond the MBA. What is it that your values are driving you towards, and have you chosen the right thing, so that if it's not for you, or if it's not in this country, or if it's not in this industry sector, you can sort of fall back and lean on your connections here and your professional network and say, you know what, I might need to pivot, and I might need to talk to my career coach, and I might need to think about, here are my other passions and here are where my other hard skills lie. What might be other opportunities for me? We encourage our students always to develop parallel paths. I really want to do this, but this would be my second place thing. I came from that industry. I'd be happy to go back to that, but this maybe is where I'd like to stretch myself to, so that they do have that opportunity if they went off somewhere else and tried on something and it didn't quite fit. that they don't get to the end of the program without the outcome that they desired.
Right. And staying with the theme of, passions and areas of interest, Mark had spoken earlier, John, about, the level of personalized support that the career management team then provides. Holding up that mirror, it always strikes me that, career services is this almost like a hidden gem. It's such an extraordinary component of the MBA program at Warrington, all four of the schools. So talk us through how that works to get perhaps candidates to look beyond their comfort zone, to think about new industries, new opportunities.
Well, I'll say that part of the way we get to that is by involving them right out of the gate. So our career team has a voice on our admissions committee. I know that's becoming more and more common, and I see heads nodding. So that's not not specifically a differentiator necessarily, but that's how you start that conversation. Because when you think about the candidates as they interview with our programs, we mentioned vulnerability earlier, like they're putting themselves out there. And so to have everybody who's going to be involved in that journey right there with them when they start that conversation is a hugely beneficial opportunity to create a relationship, to start that journey together. And when you do that, then it makes it a lot easier to have the hard conversations if you have to, or to have the stretch conversations, which is probably the goal for most of them. We talk a lot about transformation here at Warrington because you come in, you find out a little bit about yourself, like we've talked about. You learn some core concepts in business, as we've discussed, and then you're really out there to sell yourself potentially to your dream company, or maybe you've got a B or a C that you're going to warm up on. But whatever that may be, you gotta go out there and do that. And so the career coaches start with the students when they are still prospects, and that makes it that much easier for them to then say, what is it you want to do? How do we get you there? What are the core sequences that we should do? And those are really shared experiences. And that's the benefit of having small cohorts and having a larger career services team, is that we can create those small ratios, those individual conversations where your coach really is a part of the journey and not just somebody you check in with every quarter. And that way, if you have to pivot because you realize iBanking isn't for you, or maybe you don't get the offer at the end of the internship, or maybe you realize that you thought you knew something about yourself, but you were learning something new and that changed, then you've got a partner in that conversation. You've got a coach in a true sense who's going to help you reach your full potential, as opposed to somebody who's really just putting you through the motions to make sure that when you show up, your elevator pitch is 30 seconds long, your resume looks like it's supposed to and going to make it past the screeners, and you know how to get to the interview, because that's beneficial and certainly table stakes, but being able to have a real relationship with the coach is really what makes the career services and the career readiness activities come to life and are a big part of what's successful here at Warrington.
Right. And then there's the community. And Wendy, maybe there are 284 other coaches. Well, not fellow students. I don't know if they're all coaches, but they're supporting you too. And that will feed into the clubs. You mentioned guest speakers earlier, beyond the classroom, so many opportunities to explore leadership opportunities in these. Talk about some of the things that you can do beyond the classroom.
Sure. We actually went through a process. It sounds like we're doing a lot of change. I think we all are, right? We went through a process of really rethinking how we support the student experience in the last year. And it's a much more integrated, much more supported experience than it has been in the past. I think we all lived through a really challenging period in the pandemic where we lost some of our infrastructure and some of our ability to convene as a community. And that's been challenging because, our student leaders, there's a lot on their backs to try to keep things going. And when they didn't have the experience of some of these opportunities themselves, they've really kind of pitched about to figure out how to deliver that student experience themselves through the help of some of our fantastic staff. We're in a much better place than we were at the beginning, even last year. And we've really created a really strong foundation with a few additional staff members, better processes and protocols. But we have 52 student clubs, tremendous energy where students are coming together around their identities and affinity groups, around their interests and around their professional clubs that allow them to dive deeper, find their community, and really learn about how to be a professional in their career space of choice. There's tremendous diversity of people and of career paths that people are pursuing here. And so these clubs and these student experiences that they create for themselves are really foundational for their experience. We hear students say once they're here that they loved so much about the school, but it wasn't until they really had a chance to talk with student ambassadors and come to Days at Haas, or big event once you've been admitted, that they really got to feel what our culture was all about and see how compelling that experience is. And so much of it happens not just through the structure of clubs and student government, but it's in the everyday interactions between students themselves. It's in the cadence and the experience of the dialogue in classes. It's the support that they experience between each other that goes beyond just this experience. And so alumni are still a huge part of that. And when our students graduate and become alumni, these are friendships they take deep into their futures, that are long lasting and help not just them personally, but also in their careers. So that student experience, we know, is an absolutely central piece of the experience. We nurture it actively, but the students are just amazing in keeping it going and coming up with new ideas themselves. Last thing I'll mention is that we have independent studies and project-based classes where students come together to find ways through credit and faculty guidance to innovate on how to make the student experience better and stronger. And I think that feature of, making this an academic experience as well, like figuring out how to scope a problem, do your research on it, and get a plan together for implementing change, is really sort of, again, that foundation of leadership and being a change maker, a Berkeley change maker, that we like to see fostered here. So there's a number of different avenues into keeping our community really strong, but at the end of the day, I think it's shared values and just a willingness to commit and deep respect for difference in each other that show up in the class. Willingness to try things out and understand if we make a mistake, we learn from it and we go forward. So it's a very positive community. I'm so proud to be a part of it.
I'm going to address myself to the marketing professor, because Mark, I might have a shot at this one to get you to define fun. You're going to do an MBA once, and returning to your studies. Undergrad, there would have been a lot of fun there too. But how do you then define fun for young professionals at a slightly different stage in their life? Wendy was talking about friendships that are going to last them for life. So again, what takes place beyond the classroom is in this fun environment. New Orleans is a great backdrop to really create those enduring friendships.
Yeah, I think, I'm kind of famous for running off on, these stories among my colleagues, but, I think I've only been in my role for about 5 months now. We are, I think we actually are a little bit unique among, kind of all of the four, world-class universities here, in that our graduate programs, our MBA program in particular, actually was not a point of emphasis for the university, for the business school, until maybe 2 years ago. Believe it or not, my role did not exist, a year ago, right? 6 months ago. And so one of the first things I looked at, I'm a relatively social person. I said, okay, we can fix the curriculum, right? We can add, data literacy, right? Add in the experiential learning components and whatnot. I said, what are we doing for the students? This is New Orleans. If you're a 20-something living in the city in New Orleans, you should be able to find some fun somewhere. And so what we found was actually there actually was no structured program, no social programs, nothing kind of run by the business school formally, but the students, of course, were, finding their way around town on their own. And so we said, well, can we actually support this as a school? And, I'm sure, my colleagues have identified, but some of these folks at their schools, but there were, a few, what I'll call more social students, who said, hey, we would like to plan, some outings, right, for the entire class. And I said, great, the business school, we would actually like to support these outings. And so, obviously New Orleans, right, we've got Mardi Gras. And so that, that became a source of a couple of student outings. We've got Jazz Fest, right? And so we have, aside from the normal fun in the city, we have a lot of events. I think they're doing a crawfish boil. And I think that's really built camaraderie among the students, is, because we're a small group anyways, but sort of adding in these formal social activities has really strengthened us a lot. So anyways, a bit long-winded of an answer.
No, I'm thinking of the Jazz Fest and booking my ticket, and then they go out to across the country, international careers, and come back for the 5-year reunion, maybe the 10, the 15, 25-year reunions. And when the alumni come back, is it the business modeling and discounted cash flow that they talk about? When they actually say, hey, this was, the unforgettable moment of my experience? What do alumni often share with you?
Most often, what I hear from our students is the relationship with faculty and how important that was. They reflect on their journey, even if they weren't particularly good students, and we have some that I'll say coast through the academics. They're here for the career focus and maybe don't put as much emphasis in real time on the academics, and they do what they need to do to graduate. But I think what I hear over and over at Alumni Weekend is insert name of faculty on reflection. Now that I'm 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, that course that I took on real estate and having real opportunity to work on a real estate development project, that has been critical to my career. Or this faculty member took a chance on me. The class was full and I asked to be admitted because my passions lie in this area, and they gave me a shot. And if I hadn't had this class and I hadn't met this person, right, my career would have taken a really different trajectory. So I think the impact of faculty, even years later, and the impact of networking. Our graduation speaker last year, who was a graduate of our program from many years ago, told a story about the pandemic and, in his industry needing to make a quick pivot to shutting down some things once the pandemic began, and needing to raise a lot of capital very, very fast. And who he called were his Kenan-Flagler classmates from his time here. And he raised all the money that he needed from them. So I think those two things are the things that we hear from alums the most. And they're powerful stories. They're powerful stories and stories that we should be telling to prospective students as they think about what's the right place for them.
Yeah, all of you have shared so many complementary but distinct aspects. So my last question, John, for you, for any of our viewers, whether they're watching and joining us live or they're catching this later, taking the next step, not being the stealth candidate, creating a dialogue with you and your colleagues at Warrington or any of these schools. What do you like to recommend, to find out more about the personality of the institution, the faculty, the future classmates that you're going to be enjoying?
Yeah, I contact admissions early. And I mean, I'm sure that that's what Nas said to the group and what all the other admissions officers said previous to this, but that's the first part of any good relationship, is reaching out and making contact. And students are very different today than they were a couple of years ago, and maybe back when Mark, who wouldn't date himself, was an MBA student. But there's a lot of ways to do things without actually creating relationship these days. And we all know how social media works and what it's purporting to do versus what it actually does. And so in a world where everything's at the tip of your fingers, this is a great opportunity to kind of buck the mold, put yourself in an uncomfortable space and pick up the phone and call the 800 number or the admissions officer number that you may have picked up at one of the recruiting fairs that you were at, whatever, but call and start that dialogue. And I know for a fact that my team loves those calls. And I'll suspect that most of the admissions colleagues at our institutions that are here would say the same thing. And just start a conversation, because, there are lots of talented people out there. And I think we've done a pretty good job across 4 different institutions of articulating that there are lots of different opportunities to get an MBA. And we don't want people who don't want to be here any more than Wendy or Ann or Mark want people that are misfits for their organization. So have that conversation and let's get people to the right place, because the world needs critical thinkers. It needs business leaders, and we're all in that business, and we're all here to make sure that the students are getting those outcomes. So reach out, make that call, build a relationship, ask lots and lots of questions, right? There's no question that should be unanswered in the admissions journey, in my opinion. And so if you can figure out a way to have that conversation, to start that, you give the admissions team a chance to get to know who you are, and you get a chance to start getting a feel of what's the staff like at that school. And then you can start thinking about, do I want to watch them when they participate in March Madness tomorrow or Friday, depending on how that goes, if that's one of those things that's interesting to you. Do you need to look up and figure out when Jazz Fest is, or when the fog starts to roll into San Francisco? I don't know, whatever it is that's important to you, right? That's where you can really start to get to know the institution, and you'll have somebody else that can help you navigate that, so you can figure out beyond what your experience as an MBA student will be, but what will it be if you're a Gator or a Tar Heel or a Green Wave or a Bear? Golden what kind of brewing? Bear. The California schools are all bears. They get them turned
Go
around.
Bears.
Sorry, Wendy.
Yeah.
I tried. You're a bear, right? The Golden Bears or something like that?
That's
Yeah.
right, Bears.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for making such a warm and heartfelt invitation. Thank you, all of us, for joining. Wendy, I'm delighted that you joined Haas 9 months ago. Mark, that they created this role for you 5 months ago. And for John and Anne to welcome you back, because you bring so much insight, so much encouragement, of course, to find out more about your schools and the extraordinary experiences that your students then enjoy. So it was a real pleasure. Anne, John, Wendy, Mark, thank you very, very much for being with us.